Hey guys, welcome back. In the last lesson, we saw the benefits of using Cloudera Manager, and we also saw the differences between packages and parcels. We saw the benefits of parcels and its advantages over packages. Given the benefits, we know parcels are the way to go. Finally, we finished the last lesson with looking at the life cycle of parcels. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to install a Hadoop cluster with Cloudera Manager. You will see how easy it is to install a cluster with Cloudera Manager as compared to installing and configuring a cluster manually. It will almost feels like cheating. I can hear you asking, then why did we not learn Cloudera Manager before? Why did we spend so much time learning to install and configure manually? I'm going to give you the same answer that I gave you in the last lesson. At Hadoop and Real World, we want our students to understand how things work internally. We love to teach our students shortcuts, tips and tricks, but more importantly, we love to get the foundation right. That is, knowing the under the hood or behind the scenes stuff. That is why we trained you with installing and configuring a cluster manually. All right, here's the game plan for this lesson. We're going to create 4 instances in AWS. We will use one instance to run Cloudera Manager server and will install and configure Hadoop in the other 3 instances using Cloudera Manager. Let's first go to AWS and launch 4 instances. I'm in the home screen of AWS. Let's click on EC2 first. Now click Launch Instance. And here for the operating system, I'm going to choose Ubuntu Server 14.04. Select. Here for the instance type, I'm going to select T2 Medium, which comes with 4 GB RAM and 2 virtual CPU cores. Good enough for our demo. Next, let's move on to configuration details. Here, for the number of instances, I'm going to specify 4. And I don't make any more changes here on this screen. Let's move on to add storage. The default storage is set to 8 GB. I'm going to change that to 100 because 8 GB is too low. And for the volume type, I'm going to change it to magnetic from SSD because magnetic is cheap compared to SSD. Next, let's move on to tagging instances. I'm not going to tag the instances here. Let's move on to the next step. Here we have to select or create a new security group for our cluster for the nodes that we are creating. I'm not going to create a new one. Instead, I'm going to use an existing one. So I'm going to select an existing security group. Scroll down. I'm going to select this group, Cloudera Manager. Let me enlarge the screen here. As you know, security groups are set of rules which dictates which ports and protocols are allowed for these nodes to communicate with each other, and who can connect to the nodes, and on what port and protocol they can use to connect to these nodes. Here we have specified the specific port range and protocol that are allowed for connecting to these 4 instances. Take a look at this highlighted rule because it's very important. All nodes in Hadoop cluster should be able to talk and communicate with each other. So this rule specifies that all nodes using the Cloudera Manager security group can talk to each other on all protocol across all nodes. Without this rule in place, our nodes in the Hadoop cluster cannot talk to each other. So this rule here is very important. Let's go ahead, click on Next to review and launch. Here we get an alert saying that do we want to use SSD? I'm still going to stick with magnetic because magnetic is cheap, as I said, compared to SSD. So click on Next. And here's all the information about our 4 instances. Let's review it really quick. And let's go ahead and click Launch in a bit. For storage, let's make sure the size is 100 GB. Looks good. I'm going to say Launch. Here we have to select an existing key pair to log in to our instances. I'm going to select HARW because I have the key pair for HARW. The instances are now launching. Let's give a few more minutes and then let's go ahead and name our instances. I'm now back at the EC2 dashboard and now I see the new instances that we just created are in running status. So that's very good. So I'm going to name these instances as CMDemo1, CMDemo2, 3, and 4. So let's go ahead and name it CMDemo1, CMDemo2, CMDemo3, and finally CMDemo4. Now let's go ahead and note down the public and private DNS of these instances because we need them to refer them. So let's enlarge the screen here a little bit. Select CM Demo 1, and here is the public DNS, here is the private DNS. So let's copy the public DNS first. There you go. Public DNS, private DNS. I'm going to do this quickly for the other three nodes as well. Now that we have saved the information for private DNS and the public DNS, let's go ahead and connect to CM Demo 1. Because on CM Demo 1 node, we're going to install Cloudera Manager and we're going to start the installation from that node. The other three nodes, that is CM Demo 2, 3, and 4, is where we install all the Hadoop components. And those three nodes will become the three nodes of our Hadoop cluster. Make sense? All right. Let's go ahead and copy the public DNS of CM Demo 1, and let's configure PuTTY to connect to that node. I'm going to put in the host name. For the save sessions, I'm going to say CM Demo 1. Let's go to SSH. Select the private key. Go back to the session. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to cancel from the PuTTY screen. I'm going to open mremote-ng. And this is the software that I use to connect to multiple instances side by side. So let's look for our CM Demo 1. Here it is. All right. Type in Ubuntu. And there you go. Now we are logged into our newly created node. Let me clear the screen first. The next step is to download Cloudera Manager on this node and then start the installation using Cloudera Manager from this node. The latest version of Cloudera Manager at this time of installation is 5.7.1, which support installation for both CDH version 4 and CDH version 5 Hadoop cluster. And here is the URL to download the latest version of Cloudera Manager. So I'm going to issue a wget on this URL. So let's copy this URL. Go ahead and let's run it. And this URL is basically pointing to Cloudera's website. So we are downloading Cloudera Manager from Cloudera's website. So let's go ahead and run it. And here it is. The download is very quick. And let's go ahead and make sure the file is present. And there we see the file. Next step is to change the permission on this file so that I can execute the file. Just go ahead and copy these two commands and execute it. And there you go. Now we should have execute privileges on this file. Perfect. Now here's the command to start this executable. Here's the welcome screen for Cloudera Manager. Let's go on and say next. Again, here's the license for Cloudera Manager. I'm going to say next again. Do I accept the license? Of course, yes. And this is the Oracle binary code license. Of course, next. Accept the license again, yes. Now Cloudera Manager has begun its installation on this node. Let's wait for the installation to complete. It's going to take at least a couple of minutes. So let's come back once the installation is complete. Cloudera Manager is now installed on this node. Cloudera Manager has a very good user interface and it can be reached on port 7180 using admin as a user and admin as the default password. So that is exactly the information that you see here. Click OK. And there it is. Our installation was successful. Perfect. And here's the URL to reach the Cloudera Manager. We have to replace the public DNS name in this URL so that we can reach the URL. All right, so let's copy this URL. Go to Firefox. Run it. And here it is, the login screen for Cloudera Manager. For username, I'm going to say admin. And for password, I'm going to say admin as well. Hit login. The very first screen, of course, we're seeing the end user license terms and conditions. We're going to scroll over. We're going to accept the end user license. Click continue. When you install Cloudera Manager at your client location or in your company, you will already have a contract signed with Cloudera, so you will have full access to the enterprise version. Here, we have 2 months of free trial for Cloudera Enterprise, so I'm going to choose this. I'm going to say continue. Here on this screen, Cloudera Manager is listing all the services that are available as part of Cloudera Manager to begin your installation. So I'm going to say continue for this again. And here we have to specify all the hosts or nodes for our Hadoop cluster. So let's specify all 3 nodes as a comma separated list. That. Copy the next node. And also copy the final one. So let's hit search. And here you go. Cloudera Manager was able to recognize all our three nodes. So let's go ahead and hit continue. Now we have to choose the method of installation, that is packages versus parcel. From the last lesson, we know the differences between packages and parcels, and we know parcels are better and recommended. So we will choose parcels here. Next, we'll select the version of CDH. Of course, we're going to select the latest version of CDH, which is at this time of installation is 5.7.1. And we also get the options to choose additional parcels to include additional components for Kafka, Scoop, etc. We're not going to install Kafka and Scoop, so I'm going to say none. Now let's hit continue. And on the next screen, we have to provide the consent to install Oracle JDK on these three nodes. And also, we'll choose to install Java Unlimited Strength encryption policy files because these files are needed if we later choose to enable Kerberos. So let's hit continue. This screen is important. Here we have an option to choose whether you want to use a single Linux user to run all services in Hadoop, or you would like to provide a user which has root privileges, and using that login, Cloudera Manager will create individual users for each services. For example, HDFS user will be used for HDFS service and Yarn user will be used to run and maintain Yarn service. You definitely want to have individual users for individual services. It is clean and manageable. So do not select single user here. So let's hit continue. Since in the last screen you did not select a single user, you have to give a user login that has root privileges. Here, let's specify the user on all these three nodes, which has root privileges. So I'm going to click another user. And Ubuntu has root permissions on all these three nodes. So I'm going to specify Ubuntu here. I'm going to say all hosts accept the same private key. So here I have to select the private key. So selecting the private key. And we don't have any passphrase, so I'm going to select continue. Ignore this alert. We're going to continue with no passphrase. Hit OK. And here it is. The cluster installation is in progress on all these three nodes. This is going to take few minutes, but at this point, Oracle JDK is being installed on all the three nodes. Now, if you remember from the last lesson, the Cloudera Manager agent will be installed on all the nodes that are running Hadoop services. So that is what is happening here. Cloudera Manager is now installing Cloudera Manager agent on all these three nodes. Now, the installation is completed on all three nodes. And just to clarify, we have only installed Oracle JDK and the Cloudera agent on these three nodes. We have not started our Hadoop cluster installation yet. So let's go ahead and click on continue. We went over the parcels lifecycle in the last lesson, and here it is. Parcels are now being downloaded, distributed, unpacked, and activated. The parcel version that is being downloaded here is for CDH version 5.7.1 and the parcel version is 0.11. Now that the parcels are being downloaded, once the parcels are fully downloaded, we will see things will start to work parallelly. That is, as it is being distributed, unpacking will be in progress on the other nodes. This will take a few minutes. So let's give Cloudera Manager a few minutes. Now the packages are being distributed. And here at the bottom, you can see the actual status on the three nodes. You can see on the first and the second node, distributing is in progress, but on the third node, unpacking is in progress. And as you can see, things are being done parallelly across all three nodes. Now unpacking is in progress on the second node and also on the first node. Now here, parcels are being activated right now across all three nodes. Now the parcels are fully activated across all three nodes. Now let's go ahead and click on continue. In the next screen, Cloudera Manager inspected all three nodes for correctness and looks like all the tests have been passed. So that is pretty good. So let's go ahead and click on finish. Now it's time to install Hadoop components across all three nodes. Here, Cloudera Manager gives the option to specify the Hadoop services. We're going to just go with the core Hadoop services here, which will install HDFS, Yarn, Zookeeper, Oozie-Hue. So I'm going to select core Hadoop. Click on continue. The next step is to assign what services will be executed on each host. Cloudera Manager did some default assignments to our hosts, but we're going to make some slight adjustments. We're going to make this node as our primary node, that is 172.31.34.131 as our primary node. meaning we'll run the name node and the resource manager on this node. Usually in real production environments, the name node and the resource manager will not be executed on the same node. But since this is a demo, we'll make the name node and resource manager run on the same node for simplicity. So let's copy this. So let's click on the name node and select 31, hit OK. And for the data node, we're going to specify all hosts. And let's leave the secondary name node on 128, which is fine. Balance around 128, that is also fine. And for HTTPFS, let's select 28. Okay. NFS gateway, let's again select 28. Hive can be accessed from all three nodes, so we're going to leave as 128, 129, 31. And for web hcat server, we're going to select 128. We're not going to use Hue for now, but let's run it on 128. Now for all the Cloudera management services, we're going to select the node 129 to run all Cloudera management services. So let's click on that. Click 129 for all the services. And don't worry, we're going to look at all these services in detail. So Uzi is fine. We're going to run the resource manager and job history server on 131. So let's switch to that. The node manager will be run across all nodes, that is same as data nodes. Zookeeper 128 is fine. Now that we have specified the role assignments for each of our hosts, let's click on continue. Some of the services in our cluster like Hive and Activity Monitor would need to have access to a database. And for that, we are going to use the embedded database that comes with the Cloudera manager. So let's use the embedded database. And we need to test the connection of the database. So let's scroll down, hit test connection. The test is successful. Let's click on continue. Here are some of the important configuration details for our review. For example, the HDFS block size by default is chosen to be 128. Here is the local data node directory, and here is the local name node directory. We're going to leave the default configuration values as it is. So let's go ahead and hit continue. Now, Cloudera Manager will take care of installation and starting each of the individual services. As you can see, the first step is to start the installation across all nodes for all the services that we have selected. Now in the second step, Cloudera Manager is starting individual services. So let's give it a few more minutes for the installation and the starting process to complete. Right now, Cloudera Manager is starting HDFS. So far, everything looks good. HDFS is now started successfully. Next, Yarn is being started right now. Yarn is also successfully started. Next, we'll wait for 3 services to start, that is Hive, Uzi, and Hue, and then let's continue with the steps. Now all services have been successfully started. So let's go ahead and click on continue. And here is a congratulations screen. The services are installed, configured, and running on our cluster. So let's go ahead and hit finish. And there you go. Here's the home screen of Cloudera Manager once our cluster is fully started. We can see that we have all services installed and in good health. We'll go over each components and also the pages in Cloudera Manager in great detail in the upcoming lessons. But for now, we've successfully installed a 3-node Hadoop cluster in a matter of minutes using Cloudera Manager. Pretty cool, and it's easy, isn't it? Now that the installation is complete, why don't we go ahead and validate the installation? Let's go ahead and create a PuTTY session for this node for us to log in. So let's go ahead, open PuTTY. I'm going to name it CM Demo 2. Let's go select SSH auth, select the private key, go back to the session and save. Hit cancel here, open mremote ng, and then open CM Demo 2. Click yes, log in as Ubuntu. Now I'm logged into one of the hosts in our cluster. Before we go ahead with validating our Hadoop cluster, let's look at where the configuration files and installation directories are. First, the configuration files are under the same directory as before, that is cd etc hadoop conf. And here we see all the configuration files like HDFS site, core site, yarn site, map site.xml files that you're already familiar with. Now let's talk about the installation directory. If you're installing Hadoop with packages, you will see the installation files and folders under user lib in their respective directories. Since we did this installation using parcels, we will not see the installation files or folders under user lib. You'll find them under OPT Cloudera parcels directory. So let's go ahead and check this location. Let's clear the screen first. Let's say cd opt Cloudera parcels. Let's do a directory listing here. And here you can see the parcel directory. That is cdh 5.0.1 parcel 0.11. And the other listing is cdh, which is a link which points to the parcel directory. So now we know the configuration and the installation location. Let's go ahead and try out hdfs command and run a MapReduce program to validate the hdfs and yarn setup in our cluster. Before we try any hdfs command, let's go ahead and create an hdfs user directory for the user Ubuntu because we are logged in as Ubuntu. So I'm going to run these three commands on hdfs. The first two commands is going to create two directories, user and Ubuntu, and the last command is going to change the permission on the user Ubuntu directory. So I'm going to copy these three commands. I'm going to run on this node. The first command failed saying user directory exists, so let's not worry about that. The second command created Ubuntu directory under the user directory, and the third command changed the ownership on the user Ubuntu directory. Now that we have created a user directory for Ubuntu, why don't we create a sample test file and upload the test file to user Ubuntu directory. So let's go ahead and create the test file. I'm going to name it as hdfs test. Let's say this is a test file. Save it. Now I'm going to say Hadoop fs copy from local. I'm going to say hdfs test to the directory user Ubuntu. The sample test file is now uploaded to the directory. Let's do a Hadoop fs ls. And there you go. The file is now uploaded to hdfs. So it looks like hdfs is now working perfectly fine. Now that we have verified hdfs, let's verify yarn. Let's run a MapReduce program that comes with the installation. Hadoop installation by default come with some MapReduce example programs, and one such program is PyEstimator. PyEstimator will estimate the value of pi using quasi-Monte Carlo method. The details of the program are not relevant here, but it can be used to validate the yarn installation and our whole MapReduce setup. You can find the PyEstimator in Hadoop example.jar under the directory opt Cloudera parcels cdh lib Hadoop 0.20-MapReduce folder. The first parameter for the program is the number of mappers, and the second parameter is the number of samples per map. And here is the command to execute the program. Let's copy the command and let's execute it in our cluster. And there you go. The MapReduce program is now running. The map is now at 50%. The progress of the MapReduce program is good. Let's wait for the execution to complete. And there you go. The program is now complete, and here is the output. The estimated value of pi is 3.6000. Now we have successfully validated both HDFS and yarn. To summarize, in this lesson, we installed a brand new Hadoop cluster in a matter of minutes. We also looked at both installation and configuration folder locations. Finally, we validated HDFS and yarn. In the next lesson, we'll see how to actually work with Cloudera Manager, the terminologies used in Cloudera Manager, and the different pages and functionalities in Cloudera Manager. With that, let's wrap this lesson. See you in the next lesson.